Join Best of Friends as we just like friends, become best of friends on Guest of Friends.
Welcome, guys, gals, and non-bind pals, to another episode of Guest of Friends, a Nest of Friends podcast. We are all about building creativity, community that cares through crafting. So we are so grateful that I am visited by not just an amazing comedian, an amazing podcaster, and a musician, talk about triple threat, but a dear friend of mine from my baby origins back when I was a wee lesbian from Calvert County, Maryland, right before I ever deigned to put on my city boots and huff the streets of New York City. That's right. It's Will Carey. Will, hi, bud.
Hi, Sketkh. Good to be here. Thanks for having me, man.
Before we get into it, you're back to doing music and you're performing for live audiences. Didn't you just perform a show not too recently?
Yes, I did. My emo pop punk band called Sketkh, of which I am the bass player and co-vocalist. We just played a big show in New York City at Pianos, which is in the Lower East Side, and we were joined by our friends in the band Suburban Surf Club and our friends in the band Hopeless Otis, and we filled it up, and it was a really fun time.
I'm about to say, I saw it on Instagram. This was, as of this recording, this is what, like late June? This was like mid-June you did the show, and I just saw that on my For You page, and I was like, fucking A, Will. I am so happy to see you remembering when you were in high school bands, and like, insert typical high school band X, Y, and Z. I'm grateful to have seen this journey from like inception to maturation for you, my guy. This is fucking great. Where can people listen to you?
People can listen to Sketkh everywhere that they stream music right now. We currently have one single out, our song Rhode Island. It's available everywhere you stream music, and we will be releasing more later this year. We've got plans to record this summer and put out more new music in the fall.
I am excited. I was going to say, so a summer emo album, but you're producing it during the summer. So yeah, Pumpkin Spice Rage coming to you by Sketkh. I don't know. That's just a pitch. Love that for you. I can see the cover art, like all the thumbnails that are being like built up by marketing in my brain. If you had like a budget that enabled that scale of work, and it sounds so nostalgic. It sounds like so much fun, and my gosh, must bring you so much joy. Can we start there? I know how you and I met, and I know we've talked about that on your podcast. So
yes,
I want to recontextualize here on the show. We like to talk to creatives about like their life, their career, their journey, their passion with community. So Will, give us a little bit of like what your discovery of creativity was like for you. Was it like crayons in a crayon box? Was it a song this one time when you didn't understand how music was of music? Or was it like something more core memory that maybe most people don't really anticipate? Like, when did you discover you were creative, I guess is the question.
I probably discovered I was creative a few months before you met me, because when I was growing up, when I was like a child, I of course loved cartoons and I loved video games, but I had no sort of inkling that I was wanting to make art or create things in any way. As odd as that may sound, my biggest priority as a kid was getting a high score. That was what I was like most excited about. And then later on, it was, what else can I learn about the sinking of the Titanic? Those were like my two like twin, like deep dive, like super serious, like interests and passions. And what probably set me off on the path that I still follow today, the inception of what would turn me into like an artist, was when I was 13 years old. I discovered the band Blink-182. I've talked about my love of Blink-182 for a good portion of my adult life to anyone who will listen. This is a pretty known fact about me.
This was a very core fact about you even back then, because as much as Blink-182, I think we can look back at with a lens of like raw nostalgia, it was for a lot of people, because music was your identity, at least for young millennials in high school. Like it was everything about you. Like you saying you liked one band drew a very specific line. And then if you said another name, you're literally just drawing yourself into corners.
Yes, exactly. In the early 2000s, the scene, the music you were really into, and the scene through which that music was created, which for anyone who's not familiar, scene is essentially like the community around genres of music. And punk rock and pop punk has very documented, like tight-knit community with like very set kind of parameters, depending on where you are, depending on the people that are around you. But I heard power chords on an electric guitar, and I heard those melodies, specifically the song What's My Age Again. I heard those sounds, which I had never heard before, because I was a Disney kid, and I listened to a lot of contemporary 90s pop and Motown is what my mom listened to. That was my first exposure to guitar forward rock music.
Okay.
That really spoke to me. My dad had tried to play Ted Nugent and classic rock for me, but it just didn't hit the way punk rock did. And so I had to learn how to make those sounds. So our high school, Patuxent High School, had guitar classes, and I harangued my parents, I want to play guitar. And they were very supportive. Got my first acoustic guitar. This was going into my sophomore year of high school. So this is fall of 2001.
Oh, I remember that all too well.
Yes, for a lot of reasons. And at that same time, this will all come full circle. At that same time, my best friend since childhood and our mutual friend, Chris McNamara, my entire freshman year had been saying, try out for the school play. I'm in the school play. Next year, you should try out for the school play. And fall, I finally just said to myself, okay, I will try out for the school play if it will make you stop asking me. I don't think I said it exactly like that, but I said, okay, I'll go and do this.
It's funny how peer pressure works out for you sometimes.
Yes, this is very positive peer pressure. And it was, and our school had a fall play that was more of like a traditional straight play, and then a musical in the spring.
Yeah.
And that fall was kind of, I would say, like a classic sort of screwball kind of comedy called The Man Who Came to Dinner.
That was a very interesting show. We did, like, Derek Anderson, our theater director, had such a palette for like that weird British situational play. Like,
yes,
the year before that, the show that I auditioned for my sophomore year was Peter Sellers' The Pink Panther Strikes Again.
Yes, a classic comedy of the era with a very kind of like very specific style of comedy.
Yeah, exactly. For a bumble screw town in Maryland, that's biggest contribution was the Navy base brought in more people to the zip code like 6 years before. Let's do a Peter Sellers play for the high school legit show. Top shelf palette for again, Lusby, Maryland. I roll my eyes, and then you're exactly right. Of course, the next year we're doing A Man Who Comes to Dinner, a Sidney Poitier classic, if I remember it correctly. But this was one of the many versions before it was filmed, so it didn't have that bent to it. It just proved itself to be a timeless piece with a kind of like instant moral from the title. But You got bullied into auditioning for that?
I did. And I can't even remember what the audition was, but I more or less got cast in like one scene. It's me and a few other like prisoners that like come to dinner, and like the titular man who comes to dinner
I forgot about this.
is like, oh, like we were all like various forms of serial killer and such. I don't even think was supposed to have any lines. But the joke is like, oh, he brings these prisoners to dinner. Ha ha ha. But I specifically remember we would alternate like who got to have the one line to say yes sir, and I got to say like one line on stage. And once I got into the rehearsal process and I met you and I met the other people who do theater in high school, this sort of personality type,
this sort of personality type. That's the nicest way to say you guys, you weirdos, you theater kids. That's exactly what we were.
Yes. And that was genuinely, Sketkh, the first time I didn't feel like a complete like loner outcast. In all sincerity, I was a really lonely kid, and for a lot of years as a child, like my parents loved me, and I wanted for nothing. But where we grew up, it was very rarely the kind of place where you could just like go down the street and go over to your friend's house. I had to get a ride if I wanted to go to a friend's house.
Yeah.
So I just did not have a lot of people around me that I wanted to spend time with. And then I found high school theater and our community of kids who did high school theater. And these were the only people I wanted to spend time with.
The Patuxent Harlequins.
Yes.
Bless all their souls who traipse the flanks of those stages. Speaking of, I'm going to keep this in. Producer Jen just DM'd me because we were in the middle of that. I misspoke. Sidney Poitier's, what was it? A Man Who's Coming to Dinner?
Guess Who's Coming to Dinner?
Yes. A Guess Who's Coming to Dinner. So forgive the confusion. A Guess Who's Coming to Dinner.
Nope, you got it wrong again.
What is it? It disappeared, so I got to find it again. Sorry. Guess Who's Coming to Dinner. We're doing great, guys. So that was my correction on that little story. So, but again, to think about, to paint a picture, having been there from the outside, recontextualizing that, I mean, Will, that's a universal story for a lot of theater kids, whether it's two schmoes like you and me from Calvert County who are only a year apart, and by the way, identical, like was so lost, had just started to frame the idea of, oh, I'm a person, because middle school wasn't kind to anybody. I feel like that's where a lot of people go from childhood to like figuring out the very, very beginnings of having opinions, being informed, like starting to like contextualize your actions as far as like creating social dynamics. And then before you know it, you're in high school and you have to start all of that all over again, let alone, hey, finally discovering inspiration through the sounds that are very specific to the genre of music that is clicking with you, and then getting bullied by your best buddy who came in the year before, had a great time, and just wants you to ostensibly benefit from the same joy that they're finding. And I think having been there and getting to meet you when you walked onto those auditions, and getting to see you do all the things that you did during our time together at Patuxent. Same. I mean, I think for me, I had a little bit of a church pipeline from my time at St. Paul's that led me into Patuxent drama and like theater, and everything that Derek Anderson was producing and letting us produce, and letting us kind of like have that space to create and take ownership of. I know we were doing student productions for 10-minute plays. We were doing improv groups. We had the winter production by the time I graduated was an entirely student produced show, and we were doing Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe one year, and then a bunch of like original, like unpublished, or at least unproduced, like
The Reluctant Dragon.
Reluctant Dragon was a classic. And what was the one that was done like your junior year? It would have been my senior year, but it was an original play. I remember.
I can't remember to save the life.
The fog of nostalgia is thick as it is long. I get that. So, but yeah, no, dude, it was a pleasure. Like, really, it was a joy. And I say this with context now, not being a shit ass 15-year-old who met you, going through the exact same thing of like, who am I? What am I doing? How am I doing it? Thank someone that I found theater, because that space, that place at Patuxent, where we were able to be silly, where we were able to be ourselves, where we were able to like, try something that no one else was doing. I remember when we made it rain on stage.
Yeah, I tell that story frequently as like a shining example of student technical brilliance, because no adult told us how we were going to do that. The tech for Singing in the Rain, the tech crew just, it's got to rain on stage. This is how we're going to figure out how to do it.
It was like day one too. It's like, we're not doing streamers. We're not doing an effect. We're going to drop water on this stage. How are we doing this? And it was also the most like, it was the perfect symmetry of like creativity and engineering, because there was nothing more country and theater than what we did with running the series of hoses, drilling out specific holes in PVC for certain water thicknesses. Yes. I remember at one point we had watched the bonus features for The Matrix were on, and it was talking about how they had spent this time developing certain layouts for the rain sequences so that they could get the fattest, like roundest water drops, which by the way are also the heaviest. And we were like, okay, so size is a thing. And that was our research, was like the size of the holes and like where we strategize them. And it's literally just high school kids in overalls and cargo shorts going around drilling a hose they just hung in their grid. And that was the permission we were given as teenage technicians and artists, because we also are missing a huge part of our time at Patuxent. Was everyone who was backstage were just the kids who were just on stage. Like, it was so much of like a repertory company vibe where everyone was working together to make everyone feel as supported as they would want to, which was not true of the senior class before us. And like the brief 5 years that high school drama had been a thing, because our high school was brand new. Patuxent was only 6 years old when I came in as a freshman. So by the time you were there, it was maybe seven or eight, right? Like brand new building in the county, like basically the county had blown up from one high school to 3 high schools in like less than 10 years. Yes. And so there was this mass influx of mostly ex-city kids who moved from either like the suburbs of DC or DC proper, in some cases Baltimore, to work at Pax Naval, because they had just opened up a bunch of civilian positions and a bunch of contractors' offices. So a bunch of like DC work ended up in Southern Maryland, thus bringing kids like me. And I think your mom was in Calvert, right? Her whole life. Am I mistaken?
She was at, well, my mom was actually, I would say her formative years, a bulk of them were in Calvert. She was born in Ohio. She spent time in Calvert, and then she also spent time in New York on Governor's Island, and then also time in Seattle. Because
she lived on Governor's Island? That's a very specific island to live on.
Well, to some of the, if anyone's a fan of the Bowery Boys podcast, little New York history, there was a Coast Guard base on Governor's Island back in the day, and my grandfather was a decorated Coast Guard captain. So they would move around different stations, different times of her life. But the one kind of like home base that they would always come back to is this. At the time, it was a little summer cottage on a cliff in St. Leonard Creek, and that was the house I spent a lot of I lived in from like high school years to when I moved out.
Wild.
Yeah.
Well, so your first bite with Community was high school theater. After getting razzed for being a Sum 41 fan the entire time you were there, do you feel vindicated now to see that music legends have been kinder to it?
I am thrilled to see that all of the bands and scene that I loved as a high school student continues to resonate with people. And it has like legitimate, like cross-generational appeal. The fact that Gen Z kids love Nirvana, and I went to, and again, just a little peek behind the curtain of my Blink-182 fandom, when Tom DeLonge rejoined the band 2 years ago, and they went on a giant world tour, and then went on another tour, and are going on another tour, I will have seen them probably, I think, 7 times since he's rejoined the band in several different states.
I love that for you. I really do. I know exactly what that means to you, and I think that's beautiful. And I have been enjoying them more and more, having seen them do exactly that from a level that I couldn't when I was a shit ass snob high schooler who thought he knew better, who was secretly listening to the Backstreet Boys and also living that truth when he could. But,
of course, the fact that I go to these shows and I see people my age, I see people older than me, and I see people who bring their kids who put their ears over during all the curse words, because Blink have a 30-second song that is just the 7 words you can't say on TV. I think that says a lot about the power of that music and that community. The fact that I have been wearing Blink-182 shirts in Jaipur, India, and people have come up to me and said, I love that band. I think that says a lot of the power of that community around that music.
Well, Will, I think we've hit a natural pause point. Let's take a break. And then I want to talk about what I would consider Poke Evolution 2 for Will Carey's journey finding community. I'm excited to see how we go from high school years theater club emo punk fan to maybe a little bit of collegiate Will. But let's find out more after this quick break. Hey there, guys, gals, and non-binary pals. Join us Thursday, August 7th at 7:30 p.m. at Geeky Teas on Alameda Avenue in Burbank, California for our Decades of Fashion live fashion show and figure draw. Make sure to visit our pop-up fashion history museum and learn about the historic significance of all of the fashion displayed on our runway stage through the decades as Sketkh by Sketkh presents a live fashion show and figure drawing event celebrating the history of 20th century fashion in partnership with our friends at Dress Up Studio in Glendale, California. So make sure to get your tickets now for Decades of Fashion. Head on over to the Nest of Friends website at nestoffriends.org and join us again at 7:30 p.m. August 7th, Thursday at Geeky Teas in Burbank, California for a one-of-a-kind fashion show runway figure draw. Guys, gals, non-binary pals, welcome back to Guest of Friends, a Nest of Friends podcast. I'm joined with my dear friend, comedian, musician, multi-hyphen extraordinaire, Will Carey. Will, we just talked about our mutual origin stories from wee lads from Lusby, Maryland on Rosby Hall Road, talking about Patuxent, a place that no one can ever spell, and anyone outside of Calvert County, like I see so many people freeze when they're like, how do you spell that? And then I show them and they're like, what? I'm like,
wouldn't have guessed that.
No, it's been such a thing. So Will, what was it like going from Patuxent to after Patuxent, like high school onward? What was that like for you, bud?
That's a great question, because when I first got to college, that was the first time I had been away from home longer than a week. Once I hit 8 days, that was the time that
because you were in a band. You were in a band too, right? Didn't you start one in high school? And then
I did.
We also had this journey together where you had such a tight knit group with Patuxent High Harlequins and all your friends in high school, and now you're being set free. What was it like? What was it like on that next step?
Well, I definitely knew that what I was leaving was special. So I really, while I was sad to leave that time, I was excited. I was excited for what was coming next. I knew that college was going to be new experiences, and I also knew that I would never lose touch with the people that really meant a lot to me, even if we didn't talk every day, because lots of those friendships that I have, I will say that about you. I'll say that about Chris McNamara. The folks from that time I'm still in touch with, pick it up even if we don't talk for a while. Pick it right back up, and it's like no time has ever missed. But to go from high school to college, because I feel like I really checked a lot of boxes on my way out the door of high school. I only went to senior prom. I wasn't even going to go to senior prom, but then again, peer pressure.
Well,
rented the tux on 3 days, danced with everybody's girlfriend, went by myself, ended up at Checkers afterwards with free sheet cake. Really, the most responsible way I could leave high school, and check a bunch of boxes. I did.
You got your own can't hardly wait story that you need to pitch?
It's more PG than R or hard R, I guess.
Hey, there's a market for it. Don't write yourself off short. But I do remember you telling me that story, and I thought that was a lot better than most Patuxent seniors exits. So kudos to you, bud.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that. And so going into college, a lot of new things. It's a big transition.
Where'd you go?
I went to Towson University, which is in Towson, Maryland, formerly known as Towson State University. I kind of zeroed in on that for a couple of reasons. I knew a few people who were going there. My mom had gone there, and they have one of the best theater programs in the state of Maryland. So,
they really do. Outside of University of Maryland, which is nationally regarded, Towson is an excellent school. They're really great. What's the mascot again? Tigers?
Tigers. Yes, the Towson Tigers.
So you went from the Patuxent Panthers, which was the high school mascot, to the Towson Tigers.
Yes, my education is mostly predatory cats.
I see.
My higher education.
The more apex the feline, the more Will Carey is invested in that brand, that institution. That's
100%.
Yeah, if you rip this shirt off right now, do you have a Patuxent Panther on one bicep and a Towson Tiger on the other?
I don't have any tattoos, but those are good ideas.
First ones you get, just put the 2,500 down, because I'm sure those aren't going to be small pieces. I will look as a fundraising goal. Sometimes I debate: do I offer my skin to be tattooed for some inordinate amount, or do I just make my hair grow long enough that I bully someone into either paying to keep it or paying to shave it? And if you ever get to that point in your life, consider the niche market of appeasing Patuxent High and Towson Tiger fans in the world's worst feud.
I'll keep that in mind.
But Will, you went from being a Patuxent Panther to a Towson Tiger, which
yes, I did.
What was it like? What was it like going through that formative step up? You've just poke evolved level 2. What was that like for you?
Well, not too dissimilar to when I first discovered theater in high school. The friends that I made that freshman year doing theater as baby, first year, real kind of again, the friends I made really eased that transition. It also helped that I started dating my first serious girlfriend relatively soon after I arrived there. I think.
Okay, brag. Get it?
I think we had met like maybe within the first couple of weeks, and she was very nice, and we kind of, I think, were what we needed for each other for the time that we were together. So that my first semester, we spent a lot of time together. We spent a lot of time with our friends because we were all taking a lot of the same classes. We would take theater history, we would take movement, we would take voice.
This was a theater major. You were pursuing a major in theater, and then this was like you were just in the club, in the clique, in the group.
That is exactly it. The way Towson's theater education is devised, you declare your tract in the department your sophomore year. So everyone kind of starts at like a base level when you come in, and then you either have the intention of going on the acting track, the tech track, or the general studies track. But to get in the acting track, you have to audition your sophomore year of in the fall. So you do like a year of this, and then you either get into acting track or you don't. And this is going to be a part of the story. When it came time for me to audition for the acting track, I did not get in.
Yeah.
So my reaction to that was to pick up a electronic media and film minor and then switch to general studies, because I was never going to be denied my path through the arts at Towson University. And
that's excellent. That's an excellent piece of gumption to hold on to, because you know how easily that mentality from high school can just travel all the way back to college and kind of create such toxic atmospheres to combat. But I think he had a great attitude about it from the beginning. That's amazing, Will.
Absolutely. Because when I had found my thing, nobody was going to tell me I wasn't going to do it. I was going to, even if it wasn't a straight line, I was going to find a curve around any sort of obstacle, because I loved the people and I loved the work.
Because they were so supportive. I mean, I'm sure knowing the scale of Towson, which tell the people, because you're probably a better source, like how big was the school when you went there? Like what was the student population like?
That's a really good question. I would not know the exact number off the top of my head, but it's not a massive school. I would say it's like a medium-sized school.
Yeah, like probably like in the, what you'd say, like 20,000 student body versus like the 80,000 that sometimes can walk through UMD if there are people who can afford to go to college. Like,
yeah,
it can be like UMD is like a massive city, like College Park literally is that college.
Yeah, Towson's a fraction of the size of College Park.
Versus like I went to a like tiny little, barely, mostly a scam college in Long Island, and that was like maybe a population of like 16, 20, like not 20, like 16 to like 2,500. And it was so insular, so cliquey even then. So for you to not be to imagine being a baby high schooler, especially, you know, like Patuxent set us up with a lot of confidence to be creative. Like we could have easily walked into other rooms, other colleges, other spaces with chips on our shoulders and things to prove, because we had such a high like expectation of like what performance could be even before we were 18. And to go to places like Towson and to not feel seen because you didn't get like your chance to like follow that one specific track, but also to know, well, I'm not going to let this stop me. There's another way to do what I want. Like that's huge, Will. And I'm sure a lot of that has to do with the people you put yourself in. Cause if you're in the trenches with the kids in Towson, like you were with the kids at Patuxent, we were all like passionately supportive of each other, mostly because we knew that if all of us were succeeding, all of us were succeeding. Even if we had beef with each other, even if we were dating each other and we shouldn't have, we were able to like still keep the performance and the production going. What was that like carrying that into Towson again?
Carrying that into Towson was just I feel like it gave me like a little bit of a superpower to kind of bypass a lot of the sort of like cliche social sort of mores that might appear in a lot of contexts like this. I also think our high school theater teacher, Derek Anderson, did a really good job of prepping us for don't come in expecting the world. You're going to have to start from the bottom again and earn it. So I had always kind of had a real sort of, I'm going to show up, do the work, and because I can control that, and I'm going to see what happens. So I think I just went in with that mentality. I was not going to, I never got bogged. I never sort of like got upset of like, why did this person get this bigger part versus me? I've been here this long. I should be the lead. That kind of stuff has never really mattered to me. I just need to be there. And as a result of having that attitude, I've gotten to do a lot of really interesting things. My freshman, like even after I didn't get into the acting track, I still got cast in things. I would do small plays. I would do smaller parts and bigger plays. I was still in the game. And I think, and this is a mentality I still have now, being in the game is like a big part of it. Yeah, maybe you're not the quarterback, maybe you're not the captain, but if you're there, then you're in it. That's really in
Well, that's huge. That's huge to have, especially from high school into college. That's inspiring, dude. I wish I should have done better in college if I had that on my head. Like, I think that's really impressive for you to be able to hold on to the lessons and not let the ego get in the way of what you wanted to do. What was the room like? Who were you around at this time in your life? Like, where did your friends start to become your people?
My friends started to really become my people. So after that freshman year and that core group that I really rode with for a long time, I really found, I think, my strongest community in college when I still lived in Maryland. My strongest community because happened once I started doing stand-up comedy my senior year.
Tell us about that, please.
Of college. Okay. My path into stand-up, I honestly think boggles a lot of people. I remember Derek Anderson sharing one of my stand-up videos several years after I was his student, and with a sort of prideful former student doing stand-up in New York City, and people are commenting, that's why we do what we do, my friend. And that just brought me so much joy. Like, I really felt like I had like made him proud, and I was very gratified to have that feeling. And also, when I was in college, doing stand-up really set me apart amongst the theater team, the theater department, because I was doing something that nobody else was doing or thought of doing. The way I got into doing stand-up was I discovered the comedian Dimitri Martin.
Okay.
And if you're listening and you're unfamiliar with Dimitri Martin, he has very like dry, monotone delivery, and he does absurdist one-liners, and he also incorporates telling absurd one-liners while playing guitar, and he also incorporates funny drawings into his performances. And that was the first time I realized that stand-up could be short, funny, absurd thoughts. And then I found Mitch Hedberg, and then I would later go back and find Stephen Wright. And that was what really got me interested in comedy. And conversely, that my senior year, Towson had a comedy class where you do all forms of comedy. You spend time doing mime. You spend time doing personal clowning, like kind of like Marcel Marceau, Cirque du Soleil sort of clown.
You actually took comedy in college.
Yes.
I love that.
We would do all kinds of like personal kind of character comedy. And there was a section on stand-up. And I remember my TA for that class, Ron Burr, I remember him pulling me aside once. I think there was also bits on improv. And I remember him telling me, you've got a mind for stand-up. I don't know if you have a mind for improv, which is
funny.
And
that means you're an excellent writer.
I like to think that I am a strong writer when it comes to comedy writing. And we would do like a 5-minute set in class. And I wrote this 5-minute set. I wrote about my part-time job at Target. I wrote about being from Calvert County. I wrote about being tall. All things that Ron said, start writing jokes about this stuff.
I think for the listener and the people who are seeing you seated, it is worthy to say, Will, you are quite tall. Can you please give us the latest count on how tall you are?
I am still 6 feet 7 inches, and for our international audience, that's about just shy of 2 meters.
Wow. Yeah. What was it like going to Japan? Did you just spend all of it like hunched over?
When I travel internationally, I duck a lot because a lot of things in like Asia and Europe are not built with very tall people in mind. So I hit my head on a lot of things and then I just duck a lot.
Yeah.
There's an entire series of photo in my photo albums called Will Carey is Too Tall for This Place. And it's just me being too tall to fit through doors without ducking.
I think that's also a great place to take our next break. When we come back, I want to hear more about comedian Will Carey and his journey into podcasting, and then all the things Will Carey today. When we get right back, Nesties, here on the Guest of Friends, Nest of Friends podcast. See you soon. Guys, gals, non-buying pals, we've got another spectacular sketch by sketch live figure drawing event for you August 15th at Lawless Brewing Company at 8 p.m. Come join us for Brain Candy. That's right, we're going to have 2 drag artists put on their best tributes to your favorite nostalgic childhood television shows. What could they possibly have for your sketchbooks and your portfolio builds? Well, you're just going to have to get your tickets now at nestoffriends.org to find out, and join us August 15th to see what these amazing and talented models are going to have in store for you at Nesties, one and all, guys, gals, non-buying pals near and far. Welcome back to Guest of Friends. I'm chatting with my buddy Will Carey, and we want to talk about the comedian inside that's been there the entire time. Will, what was it like going from college comedy class, getting bit by this stand-up bug, and then eventually having a TA kind of be like, I think you need to hear this. You're valid as a stand-up. What was it like taking that into your post-college years?
It was very similarly the same kind of feeling that I got from that first time being on stage at Patuxent. It was, oh, you found another thing within your thing. And then as a result of doing stand-up, I found my people again in the Baltimore stand-up comedy community. Now, Baltimore's comedy scene has grown since I started, which was I started doing stand-up in the fall of 2007.
Okay.
It's grown a lot since then. There's some well-known comics that have come out of Baltimore now that most people would know. But at the time, Baltimore was not a hotbed on the comedy map the way New York, Chicago, or Los Angeles was. So there was, at that time, it was smaller and it was very, very tight knit. And if you were, and again, funny is currency in the social part of doing stand-up.
Because how many comedy clubs are in Baltimore, at least at this point? Like how many, like per like square mile could you find in the Baltimore city area?
Businesses that had the name comedy club in the title, there were 2. There was one in Baltimore County called Magooby's Joke House, which was originally a much like 150 seat place.
Okay.
And then there was the old location of the Baltimore Comedy Factory, sat around 300 people.
Okay.
And then you would occasionally find, you would find open mics, or you would find what I found, which was a booked open mic that had a paid headliner that would do like 30, 45 minutes at the end of this booked open mic. And that show was called Drink Till We're Funny. It was at a sports bar called it originally moved to High Tops Bar and Grill, but it was originally at a Damon's Bar and Grill.
Wow.
In Hunt Valley, Maryland. And it was run by a friend of mine who goes by the name T. Brad Hudson. And
that's a dope name. That's a dope name.
Yeah. And he's really responsible for me. He was the encouragement I needed to continue doing stand-up, because I remember I had killed a few times in class at college, and I was like, okay, time to do an open mic outside of class. So I found this open mic. I drove up there and I just showed up and I said, "Hi, is there an open mic tonight?" And he was very accommodating. He gave me like 5 minutes. He didn't have to do that. Normally you have to email in advance to be on for the next week. And I had like my five or six jokes I was going to do, like short ones. And at the time, my performance style I was very much imitating the sort of monotone deadpan of Mitch Hedberg or Dimitri Martin.
Mm-hmm.
So I go up at this open mic. I go up and tell jokes at this open mic. And this is not exaggerating. I did really well. Most people who do stand up their first time at an open mic, it does not go well. But I did really well, and I got a lot of big laughs.
Good for you. That's fucking amazing.
And it felt great. The rush of hearing people respond to the jokes I've written was really, really thrilling. And T-Brad instantly was like, "Dude, you have to come back. I'm gonna get your email so that I can send the invite out to you." And I drove home like king of the world.
Yeah, how could you not? You just fucking walked out on your rookie season and like literally knocked it out of the park and then left. Like, that must be such a high.
It absolutely was. And that became a part of my routine. I would write when I had downtime. I would go and do this open mic that I was like, I enjoy this. I'm gonna keep working towards it while I'm finishing up my thesis, finishing up my last semester.
Cue up Eminem's 8 Mile on repeat for the next 3 years, and eventually you built this name for yourself almost instantaneously in the Baltimore comedy scene. When do you get blown north to New York? Like, what takes you up there?
I had been in Baltimore for about 2 years post graduating Towson, and New York was always the goal. Mm-hmm. Headliners would come through this show that lived in New York, and they were always like so funny and so creative and so inspiring. And I would always be picking the brains of like, how do you move to New York? Where like, how do you get an apartment? And I had this wealth of like bits of information of how I was going to get there. And then a friend of mine from college knew that a room in her apartment building was opening. I jumped on it, and I moved up here in June of 2010. So it's coming up on 15 years in New York.
Wow. Now. It's been so long, dude.
Yeah.
That's been such a journey already.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And sometimes I still feel like I just moved here. Like, it feels like 15 years hasn't happened, but it's truly wild that I've been here this long.
So I'm going to contextualize a little bit more. You've made it to New York. You've started to do comedy. When do you start getting into music, and who's around you now that you're kind of like on your journey through the city, like in New York? You've got some comedy headliners who've given you some advice. Like, you're here. What's around you, and who's around you at this moment?
At this time in 2010, when I first got to New York, the kinds of people that were around, a lot of them are still very successful in comedy in New York City and beyond. I've done open mics with Mark Norman, who was opening for Amy Schumer, a very well-known Towson University alum. At the time. He's now gone on to amazing things. The comedian Mike Lawrence, I would see him all the time. He's had several comedy specials. He's written for big roasts on Netflix and Comedy Central. I shared a couple stages with Michael Che before from Saturday Night Live. These are all kind of the people that were like I was seeing around. Like they were all about to like break through, and they just like me and every other comic. Sometimes they got to work out material at open mics in New York, and that's where I'd see them.
Well, being in these rooms when this happens, that's it. Like you don't really make art in a void. And whether it's comedy, whether it's music, I think being in a place like New York City, especially after establishing yourself so fast in another city like Baltimore, and now here you are kind of like taking on those final steps into evolving yourself. How do you get back into music during this time? Or have you ever stopped? Like, has there been a side band for the last 15 years at this point?
Well, that's the thing. Once comedy started, I had a band in college, and we had played a couple shows, and then I had one member just moved away because for college and life, I ended up having a falling out with one of the other members, and that experience is what helped bring me into doing comedy. Initially, was the idea of like, okay, I can do this by myself. And what really brings me back around to music is starting to do my podcast, which is called Between Awesome and Disaster, for anyone who's curious. And
natural segue, by the way. I love that. Thank you.
Which was born out of my love of Mark Maron's podcast and Mark Maron's interview style. And I initially started by talking to my peers in the comedy community. I was also a avid music listener, so naturally I started to occasionally talk to musicians that I knew in New York City. But then once COVID hits and we all can't leave our apartments, suddenly all of my favorite bands from high school, a bunch of them can't tour right now because the live event industry shut down during those couple of years at the beginning of the pandemic. And so I just started reaching out to people that I was big fans of on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook occasionally. And a few people said yes. They're like, sure. Because I would write people and say, I've been a fan. I remember this album when I was in high school. I remember this album during this time of my life. I really like these songs. I want to talk about these things. And people it reconnected me with that kid that you knew who would always listen to like pop punk rock. And it sort of like brought me full circle. And just from talking to musicians, hearing tour stories, I got the itch to want to play in a band again. And I initially started doing that. I think it was probably 2022. I want to say I had a guest on named Mike Borchar, who plays in a band called Nihilosauros in New York. And I had mentioned to him like, oh, I've been really wanting to play in a band again. It's like, oh, I know somebody who's looking for a bass player. I play bass. If you're a guitarist, you pick up bass a lot of times because a lot of people need bass players. Yeah. And I joined with this band, and we were called Bright Ugly. We're sort of like a garage rock, stoner rock band. And we played for, I'd say we played for a couple of years, and then folks had falling outs, and we broke up. And then
a band had a falling out. No.
I know, crazy. You never hear of this happen. It's not like there was a TV show on VH1 that discussed this phenomenon. Yeah.
You're going to tell me there's infighting in drama clubs next. Sorry.
You're not going to believe this. But I wanted to keep doing it because I had gotten the taste of playing music on stage again. And I remembered who I was when my high school band played our high school talent show. and we started a little mini mosh pit that freaked out Mr. King, Colleen's dad.
Our principal, to contextualize this person who was upset with these students of his, not just his daughter's friends.
Yes. So again, talk about check marking high school experiences. I hold a raucous. My band starts a little mosh pit at a talent show that upsets the principal. I dance with everyone's girlfriend at prom. I get free cake. I basically lived an early 2000s teen movie in the early 2000s.
I'm saying you could still pitch that. The audience is still alive to want to relive that nostalgia. Will, this has been such a treat. I'm so grateful to have spent this time to catch up with you and to talk to you about your journey building community. Before I let you go, and before I keep you around for the paid tier content, I do want to know what's your current community like. You've got this comedy group. You've got this comedy career. You've got this music career. Who's in your life now that gives you all of this support that are your people at this moment?
Well, outside of my wife, who is eternally supportive and just really wants nothing but the best for me and for my creative endeavors. My wife, Chelsea Connor, is eternally supportive of me and what I do. Outside of I would say my two communities right now are the New York City punk rock community. So my current band, Sketkh, we play pretty frequently with our friends Hopeless Otis, and Larry Spann, the lead singer of Hopeless Otis, runs monthly shows, punk rock shows, in the back room of an Irish bar called the Shillelagh Tavern in Astoria, Queens.
I love that.
And we play somewhat regularly, and so he's been a huge supporter of Sketkh and has gotten us on stage a lot. So I'm tremendously appreciative of his support, as well as the other very cool bands we've gotten to meet and play with. Another band I'm thinking of is Something About Ghosts, is a great alternative indie rock band. We played a great show with them in Bethpage in Long Island. Wow. So the bands that I play with, again, I've mentioned my friends in Suburban Surf Club, my friend Aaron Barkstrom, again, huge early supporter, frequent guest on Between Awesome and Disaster. Those relationships I'm building in the punk rock scene in New York are really deep and really meaningful. And then also, again, bringing this full circle, I've fallen in my community in comedy right now is I've really fallen into the world at the People's Improv Theater and the sketch performers and improvisers that do shows there. Yeah. I am not to sound arrogant, but I am.
You're allowed to sound a little confident, though. You can do that.
So I do tech at the pit. I run the lights and sounds and music cues during shows, and because I have a background and because I've done comedy for so long, I have a pretty good sense of how to punctuate certain elements during shows.
Yeah,
and I've worked a lot with a group called Backdoor Barbecue, and then until relatively recently, they just had their final show for before hiatus. I did tech for a live dating show called Love Is Live, and the performers that I work with there are all incredibly lovely people, incredibly supportive, and really because I really put a lot of joy into my work as the tech and collaborating with these groups to make their visions come to life on the stage. And I have received effusive praise from the folks I've worked with, and it's really been incredibly meaningful and validating to me to hear that from them.
Well, Will, having seen that from the very beginning of your journey, almost 20 plus years ago, and understanding the human Xanax level quality it's like to have you in the room with people, like you really are a light. And I think knowing how much you care about making sure that other people feel supported, and that also knowing that you know a thing or two about how to, run a fader or run a cable, or, like be able to treat a person like a human being.
Mhm.
I think all of those things add up to a very amazing and accomplished creative like yourself. And I can totally see how, even with the gaps in our years together, how you filled that by being able to attract other people to you for the genuine self that you are, this curious, dry, like whimsically sardonic musical nymph who happens to be 6'7". And I think from everything I've seen you do, from our baby days back on the Patuxent stage to being able to watch you on my For You page and on your podcast, like, have such a weight and such a stake in what you are doing and how it is so uniquely 100% you. I'm really proud of you, bud, for having all that around you and being able to find people like that, because that's hard. It's really hard for a lot of creatives to feel perceived for who they are, not just the product they may be, and also to know what to do once they get that. And I don't think you've ever let that like hurt you or hurt anyone else. And I think that's really impressive. I'm proud of you, bud. Like, kudos. And can people still find you on the podcast? When's your next show? Like, tell us where they can at you and where they can find you. And then we'll get into saying goodbye to all the people listening to the free podcast and talk a little bit more for a second after that. So yeah, Will, where can people find you? What do you got going on? This is coming out probably towards the end of, or maybe middle of August, I feel like. So
okay.
We're coming up on the fall as of listener. What do you have on the horizon if you can look that far ahead?
Well, if folks are interested, they can check out my website, awesomedisaster.com. That has links to everything that I do, as well as all of my social media. You can listen to my podcast, Between Awesome and Disaster, everywhere that you get your podcasts. You can listen to my band Skipplag everywhere that you get your music. And if folks are interested in when Skipplag is playing live or when we are releasing new music, you should follow Skipplag NYC on Instagram. And you should follow me on Instagram as well, Will Carey 23. Again, all links at awesomedisaster.com. And for the privileged few, I'm at Will Carey on Blue Sky. I got the first Will Carey on Blue Sky.
Good for you. You finally got the first Will Carey. I know what that's like in your journey. Well, Will, thank you for sharing this, and ta-ta to all of our listeners. I've been your host, Sketkh Williams. Today's episode has been produced by Jennifer Martina, and you can find us at nestofriends.org for all of the links for our upcoming events, including all of our regular live figure draws with Sketch by Sketch over at nestofriends.org. And yeah, bye, everybody. Bye. Guest of Friends was created and produced by Jennifer Martina and Sketkh Williams. Hosted by Sketkh Williams. Featuring music composed by Libby Ward with lyrics and vocals provided by Jennifer Martina. Cover art for Guest of Friends was created by Mitra Katsuyoshi. Guest of Friends is brought to you by Nest of Friends. Our mission as Nesties is to provide the kind of third space our world deserves through creativity, with community, with craft and care. Please like, subscribe, and leave a comment below on Spotify, YouTube, iTunes, and everywhere you're experiencing this podcast so that more people can discover it and help create a better world with one act of creativity.
Join Best of Friends as we just like friends. Become best of friends on Guest of Friends.